Have you ever wondered if a single mountain could hold the power to start a war that changes the world forever? For the men of Delta Force, that question was not some distant idea. It was a living nightmare they chose to walk into because the alternative was far worse. If you're already feeling the tension and you love real stories of courage that most channels are afraid to tell, then do this right now. Hit the like button hard, subscribe to join our growing community, and share this video with one friend who needs to hear about the quiet heroes keeping the world from me. Brink. It takes 10 seconds. And it keeps these stories alive. To grasp why this raid felt impossible, you first need to understand what Iran had built. For years, the regime had chased nuclear capability while insisting it was only for power plants and hospitals. Few believed them. Intelligence from across the globe painted a darker picture. They were enriching uranium far beyond the levels needed for electricity. The material was being spun in advanced centrifuges until it reached concentrations, everything inside a mountain in a remote corner of the country. The construction was brilliant in its patience. They did not pour concrete in one giant project that satellites would spot immediately. Instead, they moved slowly. Small crews worked under the cover of mining permits and earthquake retrofitting programs. Rock was hauled away in ordinary trucks. Blast doors were painted and textured to match the surrounding stone. Air vents were tucked into natural cracks and fitted with baffles that hid heat signatures. The entire facility sat under more than 200 feet of solid rock. It was engineered to laugh at normal bombs. Iranian guards trained for underground combat lived inside it. Passive sensors watched the skies for the faint heat of jet engines without sending out any signal an American warplane could detect. This base was not just a factory, it was a ticking clock. At the levels of enrichment they had achieved, experts calculated Iran was weeks away from having enough material for multiple warheads. One bomb in the hands of a regime that had threatened to wipe Israel off the map could trigger a regional firestorm. Neighboring countries might race to build own weapons. Terror groups could eventually get hold of loose material. The world felt the pressure building. Families in Tel Aviv, in Riyadh, and even in American cities had reason to lose sleep. The central conflict was clear. A determined nation was racing toward a weapon that could change the balance of power forever, and the only force capable of stopping it without starting World War III was a small group of American operators willing to risk everything. American planners studied the mountain for months. They knew a simple airstrike would fail. The rock was too thick, the defenses too clever. Conventional missiles would explode on the surface and leave the centrifuges and stored uranium untouched. That left only one realistic path. Crack the mountain open just enough to let elite soldiers inside, secure the material, get out alive. The unit chosen for the most dangerous part of the job was Delta Force. These operators are the very best the Army has, hand-picked after brutal selection courses that test mind and body to the limit. They train in complete darkness and flooded tunnels in environments designed to break ordinary men. For this mission, they prepared like never before. Full-scale mock-ups of the Iranian tunnels were built in a secret desert location. They practiced carrying the heavy lead-lined cylinders. They drilled responses to cave-ins, power failures, and sudden ambushes. One veteran sergeant later recalled looking at a photo of his two young daughters the night before the operation. He told his team he was not doing it for medals. He was doing it so his girls could grow up in a world that had not gone nuclear. That kind of quiet resolve ran through every man on the team. They knew the risks. Capture meant propaganda trials or worse. Radiation exposure was a real possibility if containers were damaged. The mountain itself could become their tomb if the structure gave way. Yet they loaded their gear, checked their weapons, and boarded the helicopters without hesitation. This was the call they had trained their entire careers to answer. The operation began far from the mountain itself. Stealth fighters slipped through the night sky. Their job was to blind the passive sensors Iran relied on. Those cameras could spot engine heat against the cold background of space, but they had one weakness. They'd be overwhelmed or destroyed. The fighters released clouds of decoys that burned with the same signature as real aircraft. Iranian launchers responded immediately. Missiles streaked upward. Pilots jinked hard and dropped flares that turned the sky into a blinding dance of fire. One pilot took shrapnel to his tail, but kept his aircraft in the fight long enough to take out a key sensor array with a precision strike. His calm voice on the radio steadied everyone. That single act of bravery opened a window. Next came the cruise missiles. Dozens of them raced low through the valleys, hugging the terrain to avoid detection. Some carried explosive warheads. Others were clever decoys designed to soak up Iranian interceptor fire. Explosions rippled across the ridges. Hidden launch sites went silent one by one as ammunition ran low. The mountain shook. Dust clouds rose into the night. Then, the heaviest blow fell. A stealth bomber cruising high above released a single massive penetrator bomb. This weapon was no ordinary munition. It was a 30,000-pound steel dart engineered to punch through 200 feet of rock before detonating. When it struck, the entire valley lit up. The ground rolled like an earthquake. A jagged breach appeared in the mountainside, and tunnels deep inside cracked open. For the first time, the fortress had a wound. Delta Force operators fast roped from heavy-lift helicopters into that chaos. Boots hit. Shattered rock as gunfire immediately erupted from surviving guards. The Iranians fought with the desperation of men protecting their life's work. Bullets cracked past helmets. One operator took a round to his body armor that knocked him down, but he rolled to his feet and kept advancing. Push through, their team leader called. They moved like ghosts, trained by years of close-quarters battle experience. Inside the tunnels, the air was thick with dust and the sharp smell of explosives. Night vision turned everything an eerie green. Every corner could hide death. The operators reached the centrifuge hall faster than expected. Machines lay damaged and leaking, but the real prize waited in the storage vault further back. Dozens of sealed cylinders marked with radiation warnings. This was the enriched uranium, enough to alter the strategic map of the entire region. The men felt the gravity of the moment. One young operator thought of his wife pregnant with their first child. He whispered a promise to come home as he helped lift the first cylinder onto a reinforced sled. The weight was crushing. The danger of exposure was constant, yet they worked with speed and care. Outside, the battle for the sky continued. Iranian reinforcements raced toward the site only to be met by precise strikes from above. One convoy disappeared in a fireball that lit the ridges. Then a new threat appeared. A hidden launcher inside a side cave fired a volley of rockets at the waiting helicopters. The birds were vulnerable while hovering. That is, when a swarm of small autonomous drones activated. These units had never been used in combat before. They raced forward, intercepting rockets in mid-air in brilliant flashes. The mountains seemed to be fighting back, but American ingenuity and courage turned the tide again. Communications suddenly died as thick rock and damage blocked every signal. The teams inside had no way to tell the extraction force they were ready. Panic could have set in. Instead, one sergeant remembered training he had on enemy communication gear. He located an intact Iranian node, made quick modifications with tools from his pack, and sent a tight beam signal through the fresh breach in the rock. The message was simple: package secure, ready for pickup. The response was instant. Helicopters moved in under a blanket of covering fire. Delta emerged from the tunnel carrying their deadly cargo when they're wounded. One operator had been shot in the leg, but he refused to be carried until every cylinder was loaded. "Mission first," he said through gritted teeth. The birds lifted heavy engines, straining under the weight. Bullets pinged off armored sides as they dove into the protection of the canyons. Fighters above created a corridor of safety. The flight out felt eternal. Every man stayed alert, expecting one final ambush that never came. When they finally crossed into friendly airspace, the tension broke. Quiet cheers and backslaps filled the cabin. They had done what many called impossible. This raid revealed truths that go far beyond one mountain. It showed that no bunker is deep enough when the will to reach it is strong enough. The passive defenses Iran spent years perfecting were overcome not by brute force alone, but by layered thinking. Stealth aircraft, decoy missiles, a bunker buster designed for exactly this problem, and most importantly, men willing to walk into the dark. Delta Force did not succeed because they had better guns. They succeeded because they could adapt when the plan met reality. A blocked tunnel became a new route. A communication blackout became an opportunity to improvise with enemy equipment. A near disaster in the sky became a display of pure pilot skill and drone technology working together. The enriched uranium those operators carried out represented more than metal and powder. It represented years of Iranian effort and the potential for unimaginable destruction. By removing it, the United States and its partners bought the region precious time. Breakout timelines were pushed back, diplomatic efforts gained breathing room, adversaries around the world took notice. Underground facilities in other countries suddenly looked less secure. The message was clear: depth of rock does not equal safety when the people coming for you refuse to accept impossible as an answer. Yet the victory came with a human cost that should never be forgotten. Those Delta operators still carry the memories, the smell of dust and fear in those tunnels, the sound of the mountain groaning overhead, the split-second choices that decided life or death. Some will need time to heal bodies and minds. Their families waited in silence, not knowing if the knock at the door would bring the worst news. That is the hidden price of these missions. We see the success. We rarely see the quiet nights when the weight of what they did settles in. This operation also forces us to think harder about the future of conflict. Adversaries are already digging deeper and hiding better. They are studying American tactics and looking for new ways to beat our sensors and our adaptability. The answer is not to rest on the success. It is to keep pushing the edge of training, technology, and human ingenuity. Delta Force and the units that support them represent something special. They are the insurance policy against a more dangerous world. When leaders decide a threat has grown too large, these warriors are ready to act with precision and courage that protects the rest of us. As the last helicopter vanished into the protective embrace of the canyons, a heavy silence fell over the damaged mountain. The mission was over, but its echoes would be felt for decades. Those Delta Force operators had reached into the heart of darkness and pulled out the most dangerous material on Earth. Not for glory, not for headlines, but because the alternative was too terrifying to accept. They carried the weight of history with them. The knowledge that if that uranium had remained, it could have sparked a chain reaction no one could control. Cities erased, families destroyed. A world changed forever. The mountain stands damaged, but still proud against the Iranian sky, a silent witness to what disciplined, brave Americans can achieve when the stakes are highest. It reminds us that freedom has a price, one that these quiet professionals pay every single day so the rest of us can live in light instead of fear. Their story deserves to be remembered. Their courage deserves our respect, and their example should inspire every new generation that some lines must never be crossed. Not while men like these still answer the call. Before we end this, if the bravery and intelligence behind this mission gave you a renewed sense of pride in our military, then take one more step. Share this video widely so others can learn what really happened in that mountain. Consider becoming a member of the channel for extended interviews with veterans and early access to upcoming scripts. Your support lets us keep telling the stories that matter. The impossible was done, the uranium is safe, and the world is a little safer tonight because a handful of American warriors refused to accept that a mountain could stand in their way.